Good evening. Thanks, Josh. I am just clear that from my screen. All right, folks, you are stuck with me tonight. John can't be here, so we'll get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. I know Mr. Dutton isn't going to be here tonight. Mr. Powers, I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to start us off with opening remarks.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Yeah, I just want to kind of, provide a quick update. I know obviously Alyssa and Joe and, we'll go over where we stand. I think we continue to meet weekly on Tuesdays with Agostini Bacon, CHA, RDA, and obviously members from the district. I think we're at a point where we're coming close to the end. There's still a few items on the punch list that need to be finished up. Some of those seem to be taking longer than others, and I think it's starting to cause us to kind of say, hey, what's taking so long? And you think of your house and having a punch list there. Think of that on a much bigger scale. And so some of this is common from what from what I understand, but also there are some things that we are, like I said, kind of growing a little bit concerned about. But I have to say, and speaking with Joe, Alyssa, and Connor, and RDA, and even at our Tuesday meetings, some of our subcontractors, we're having a difficult time getting them back to finish some of the work. But everybody is working collaboratively to kind of put the pressure on them to make sure that they're getting back to finish up the products. Obviously, we still have some things that are ongoing just because of supply chain issues. And then we have some other things that really seem to be more about getting the vendor and the subcontractor back in to finish this work. So we do have our Tuesday meeting tomorrow. One of the vendors is actually going to be there just so we can kind of share with them some of our concerns. A lot of it is around the programming of the different systems, the security systems, the lighting systems. So we want to make sure that they understand really where we're coming from, and impress upon them how we really need to get some of these things worked out and addressed sooner rather than later. But otherwise, every week we're seeing progress, which is great. More materials being delivered every week in terms of, some things that need to be finished, the gym, some of the petitions, the dividing petitions, all of those, and obviously the panel work still continues. So we are pleased every week when we meet. There has been a lot of progress, but just we're coming up against it on a couple items that we feel after tomorrow we'll have a good solid game plan on how we're going to address that.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Powers. And I apologize. I just realized that I was not on video. Should be. Just
that was messing with your camera.
We are on item 5, approval of previous SBC meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the October 17th, 2022 meeting minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion by Lil, a second by Matt Rushton. Roll call vote. Josh?
Michael?
Yes.
Lil?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Michael Loesch?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Very good. Thanks, Josh. Item number 6, OPM update. Alyssa and Joe, turn it over to you, and Connor as well. I see him here.
Right. This will be a fairly quick presentation today. Hopefully you all notice they're getting shorter and shorter. Can you all see my screen?
We can.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll hop into progress update. We're continuing to complete contract work, monitoring that schedule. We're into the warranty and punch list. So we're tracking that on both the daily and weekly basis. We continue to update the Google form where we're tracking those warranty items. So any of those deficiencies are getting filtered to either Bacon, or if they're small wares or furniture related, to WB Mason. We're continuing after hours work with the Rulon panels. That work's going to continue into December. And again, that's aesthetic work. So just continuing to track that after hours. We had a change order to install railings around the lay lights. That work's since been completed and installed. The install of the display cases in the lobby and the maker spaces are in progress. And then the light shades in the hallways that were missing are now coming in piece by piece, and we're getting those installed. And then our big discussion that Ryan mentioned was we've been pressing our security company to do a formal training for the mass notification. So right now we have a basic understanding of how the system works. We've done a few drills to see how the sequence goes, but we really have been pushing for them to get all of the programming behind the scenes 100%. That way the owner understands exactly how to use the system and what features do we own versus what features would be nice to have and are necessary for the security of the building. So that's a big discussion that we're planning to have tomorrow with this contractor, so we can decide how we're going to move forward. So as you guys know, we explained last month that we cut their requisition, meaning that we didn't pay them because we didn't feel that they were motivated enough to complete this work. We didn't get a reaction out of them. We pressed them again, multiple weeks. And we finally said enough is enough. We need to have an in-person meeting. And that meeting will be tomorrow. And so now the tone has shifted. They really do want to work with us because we've threatened now to sub it out to another company if they're not able to get the programming to 100%. And a lot of this goes back to demonstrating how the system works and how do the features work. So even though the actual physical work is done, we still need to do the software side of things to ensure that everyone knows exactly what the system is capable of doing and how that should work in a real life situation. So we've also had, Dennis has coordinated with police and fire, as well as a couple people on staff and teachers to do these ALICE drills and trainings. So I think that's been really helpful in seeing how does the system work and explaining to, everyone that this is how it should work versus, these are things that we should sit down and talk about and potentially have a change order if there are extra features or things that we feel we may need. So in so many words, that's really what's been going on. I did want to show you guys some progress photos that our APM took, Connor. So this is our playground, 100% complete at this point. It's been inspected. And then here is what the finished Rulon panels work looks like, as well as that extra lay light. So we won't have this, this black area here where the railing is. So this is being finalized and glazed in now. So you'll see that will be removed eventually. But this is the progress right now. This is where our outdoor classroom and our library area is. And then our media center on the right. This is the lobby and the gym. So a few photos there. So just to hop into some of the schedule. So we've had the contractor put together just this basic schedule so we can show you guys what we have left to do. There were some doors that we needed hardware replaced and some doors that we needed to fully replace. So even the building now is safe and secure. We still need to switch out these doors. So that work will happen over the next couple weeks. We have some various millwork that needs to be finalized, display cases, cork birds, and then the glass of the display cases. We also have a second coat of the sealer being applied to the gym floor. So we had the rep come out, inspect the floor, and found that there was a slightly more imperfections and grittiness to the floor. So from a quality standpoint, we did not accept it. We asked them to put a second coat of sealer on the floor so they would resand and reapply. So they'll be doing that the first weekend in December. So that's some work they will come in and do on a Friday, and it will be ready to be used on Monday. So that work is upcoming. Again, the floor is safe and ready for use, but we'd really like to see that quality finish be improved. We have a couple items for Chandler, couple areas where the glass was broken. Some of this had to do with some landscaping scraps hitting the window, and then some other places where the door got hit. So those will be all replaced. And then again, that door will be replaced, exterior 117. We're continuing with K&K, the ceiling, the wood ceiling beams in the media center and the computer lab. So that work is upcoming on the next 2 Saturdays. And then just continuing that after hours, Rulon panels throughout. So they did bring in an additional crew to help supplement that work. We're looking to end of December to finish that work. And then we mentioned we're doing the gym operable partitions. Those are upcoming. So that work will be done the week of the 28th. And then continuing to finalize the AV systems and the lighting control programming. So we were actually missing an important part in the AV system that we couldn't get and we couldn't substitute. So that part has held up some of that AV work going down in the cafetorium area. So we're awaiting that to be shipped. I believe that's shipping this Wednesday.
Les, I just want to add, so I want to let the committee know there's actually favorable conditions that you have right now, occupying the school as you have right now and still having the contractors continue in some of the work. Benefit is that any of the warranty items are being addressed a little quickly, more accessible and quickly for the district rather than having to call it and schedule it after hours. The contractors, a lot of them are on site to be able to make some of these corrections. So, and we're getting notification of the imperfections from the district as they use in the school and finding out little nuances that may not be 100%. We get notification through that Google network that Alyssa has set up. We're able to notify the contractor and the subcontractors of the deficiencies so they can make the corrections, whether it's after hours or we can sequence them in during operation. So it's been actually a good thing to occupy the building as the contractor was still finishing some odds and ends.
Thanks, Joe. So just the next few forecasted building committee meetings, I did want to touch a little bit on this. As these meetings will start to get shorter, there'll be more of a progress update and hopefully just payment of bills. So eventually these meetings will get much shorter. However, the MSBA does have a lengthy closeout process. And I believe it was Mark Lindy who asked me the question, where do we see the committee and how is their service going to continue? So we'll still continue to meet once per month for the foreseeable future. I would think at least for the next 9 months. And this eventually, like I said, will just be payment of bills really. But once we hit that 95% cap for the MSBA ProPay, they won't reimburse us above and beyond that. Right now we're at 85%. So we are moving in that direction to cap out. And from that point, it will be just continuing to do their very lengthy closeout process.
Yeah, there's a
so
little bit of an audit that they'll end up.
Yeah.
It takes a few months. And
Yeah.
There'll be some interaction with CHA and the district providing them final documentation.
Yeah. So it could be at some point we're just meeting for 15, 20 minutes just to pay bills and recap, a couple items that may be going on. But these meetings will continue to be shorter and shorter. Eventually won't be voting on any change orders or anything like that. So just wanted to recap that. This is where we stand with the budget. So as you can see, our entire project budget was 81 million and we're paid to date 61 million. So still a little bit of ways to go, but just continuing to track those ProPays. We are up to date right now. The latest ProPay is under review at the MSBA. So that's the update. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Thanks, Alyssa. Any questions for Alyssa from the committee?
Mike, just real quick.
Go
You
for
don't
it,
mind?
So Alyssa, the programming of the lights, is that why they're on all night? Is that because they're not programmed yet?
Yes.
'Cause I think when you drive by the school at night, and I've heard it from a couple of neighbors, that every light is on in the building all night. Is that true?
Yes, we did talk about with facilities and the custodial staff that there is a breaker that we should be turning off after hours that will shut that whole side off of the building. So that way you won't see the lights at night. So
Alright,
I
and-
believe that is happening.
And then the gym floor, is that, so that's getting sanded and refinished one more time?
Yes.
So that's, hey, Pat, that had to do with a little bit of silt that was in. After they had screened it, they dry mop it to get as much of the silt off. And unfortunately, some of the silt had settled at the top and it created a little bit of a grittiness. So we, obviously it was a deficiency that we noted and we requested it to be screened, cleaned, and then resealed, and that's what they made it.
Was that supposed to be done over Thanksgiving break and now it got pushed out to the first week in December? Did I hear? Is that correct?
We had proposed it to be, but they said they can do it over any weekend in December. So we chose the first one.
All right, great. All right, thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Pat. Mr. Bray or Mr. Powers, do either of you want to address the lights? And I know you've taken some corrective action or temporary action to alleviate some of that light spillage, if you would, after hours.
I know Mr. Bray has had a couple conversations with some of the neighbors. I believe they may have come over to the school last week or the week before. But to Alyssa's point, trying to work with facilities to identify, the breaker. They have identified the breaker that will shut a bank of lights off on that side. We're kind of running into two separate issues. One, the parking lot lights, in terms of the pole lights, and then also the building lights. So trying to identify the breaker to again, they've identified the breaker, but trying to use the breaker to shut the lights off along that preschool second grade hallway at night. And then looking at the pole lights, those can be programmed so that they're shutting off incrementally throughout the evening, that one bank will go off at, when it becomes dark, another one will go off later on, say 9-10 o'clock. And then majority of them will go off when the custodians leave at, say, 10, 11. But there will still be a few lights that stay on for security purposes. But right now, again, programming those lights to make sure that they are all shutting off when they're supposed to. And then they can also be dimmed. I guess I'm using the correct term, dimmed, much like a house light. Instead of operating at 100%, they can be programmed to operate at, say, 60%. So it's not as bright. So just working out those kinks right now as well.
Thanks, Frank. Alyssa, why don't you give them a little heads up about what we're doing related to the power usage as well?
Yeah, so right now we've been talking creatively about how do we not stick the owner with the cost of having to have these lights on 100% of the time. So we did tell the contractor and their sub that they would be responsible for the invoices for lighting that we're tracking, because we don't feel that we should be paying for the lights being on 100% of the time due to their incomplete work.
This is John with RDA.
Hey, John, go for it.
Just to speak on both of these points. In early July, Derek and I sat down and worked out the exterior light programming, and throughout the contract, they knew the interior light program. This contractor has known exactly what to do since early July. And that's why we're so frustrated with it, because we gave him a program to dim the lights, the exterior lights to 60%, to make sure that the bank of lights in the pre-K and the second grade went out at certain times and on the occupancy sensors. And all of this was done. When I got incredibly fed up, I asked our engineer to give us the projected energy consumption when the building was fully occupied. And he has given me that. And as soon as we get the first bill, it's our intention to start doing some comparisons with CHA and us and the owner and figure out exactly how much energy has been used by this contractor unnecessarily, And it is my intention to advocate for back charging the contract, this amount of money. So, and I mentioned this 2 months ago, kind of clandestinely to the engineer, and it somehow got back to the contractor, and they came and did a bunch of stuff, and then they disappeared again. So I don't know how much of a hammer that is now, because they don't seem to care, but it's something that we have been chasing since early July, because we knew this would be an issue with the neighbors.
Thanks, John. Mr. Bray, I know you've asked our fantastic staff to take some measures as well. I don't know if you want to.
So we've been just trying to do our best to put the blinds down at night when we leave. And I did speak to two of the neighbors. Two gentlemen have come over a couple of times. I will say they've been very polite, respectful, patient. They have attended some of these meetings, so they knew what John said about some of the lights dimming and going off at certain times, and they were just asking what the timeline was for that. But I will say, and I don't know if they're here, I did tell them there was a meeting tonight if they wanted to come to public forum, so I don't know if they're here, but I will just say that they, even though they have been coming over, I have to admit, they have been very polite and respectful. They like having the school behind them. They're not complaining about that. They're just looking for a timeline on when these things that they've heard at the meetings will be taking place.
Understandably, I can appreciate that, as I'm sure everybody on the committee can. So we'll continue to work this at the Tuesday meetings, I'm sure. So,
Joe, Mike, one more question.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Pat.
If this is the responsibility of the contractor, then, and they're not responding, why don't we tell them we're gonna have a custodian go over there on overtime and control the lights on and off, and we're gonna deduct it from what we own?
That's kind of what we're doing now, Pat.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to item number 7, designer update. Gene and John.
Great. We were tardy sending out a memo last night. I know Alyssa, sorry, distributed it this morning. I'm not sure if folks have seen it. I can share my screen and go through it again, Mike, if that's your pleasure. It's, as usual, all about, change orders. So
If you don't mind, Gene, that would be good. Just a high overview.
great. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. The big summary view, high level. There's a change order that CHA and ourselves have reviewed and approved with 9 different PCOs. It totals $128,916. Most of which is a single change, which is the first PCO for $90,165. That is for and this is true and honest, an unforeseeable cost increase in asphalt. When they did this thing 2 years ago, it was a whole different economy, which you guys obviously benefited from because this thing came in so well. But as we all know, I assume, the cost of gas, cost of oil have all kind of skyrocketed. And, the bidder who did all the paving, and there's a lot of paving, did not have, honestly, enough in his bid based on old prices to cover the cost of the work. And I put one little note in here that typically, from what I understand, when Mass Highway does a bid job on any kind of paving job, that there's always some sort of allowance for fluctuations in the price of asphalt. So I know Joe and John, I think mostly Joe, have really been working this over You can see it's PCO number 86, and we're up to 100 and something by the end of the change order. So it's been on the table and it's been the subject of discussion for many months. And I think, Joe, I don't want to speak for you, but you're satisfied and ready to bring it to the committee for approval.
Yeah, that's fair to say, Gene. I mean, basically, no one could have anticipated the fuel cost surcharges with it, never mind with gasoline, heating oil, as well as asphalt. And they've incurred the cost from, you got a picture of the original bids accepted back in 2019 to the time that we had the escalation till now. Even though the asphalt was planned towards the end of the project, they couldn't have anticipated the cost increase associated with it.
So, yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions on it.
Yeah,
I'll
Gene,
pause,
Mark does. Mark Lindy has a question. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. I understand the increases and everything, and I'm hoping going forward, even if we have 15-minute meetings, I know Friday was a holiday. I really don't think we should get stuff the same day to approve it. I am not going to vote for this because of that. Just telling you.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
I do apologize for that, Mike, and I know, or Mark, and I know just we had some stuff going on this weekend and I got it out last night. So.
Mike, I won't ask any more questions after this, I promise.
I don't buy it, but go ahead.
So in the contract, is there a range? So if the asphalt fell in price, would we have been getting a rebate?
We would have advocated for it, Pat, for sure.
So I just want to make sure it's fair to both parties. I mean, if it went up and we're on the hook for it, we're on the hook for it. But if it fell, was it in the contract that we get a rebate?
We would argue based off the schedule of values. So if the cost implications drop, if let's say it was, $6 a ton and it went down to $3, we would certainly advocate it based on the schedule of values that was in the requisition.
So why is asphalt any different than steel or any other material?
It's actually not, Pat, when it comes to it, but it comes down to when the original buyout was and the cost implications. So the state's pretty clear as to what is, a considerable or under reasonable expectations of what costs could be moving forward. And they take into consideration, and asphalt is one of those volatile entities that, they're based on the crude market. It's tough to forecast 18 months later what's going to be. You can put all the escalation you want into it and calculate it and schedule it out. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a fair number when you go to buy it at that point. That's one of the difficulties.
But that would be the same for bricks or for an asphalt roofing or rubber roofing or steel, correct?
Yeah, sure.
And we didn't have any escalations on those? Any change orders?
They were within tolerances.
All right, thank you.
I think it's also worth noting, and Joe, I think you've talked about it, but I know John has definitely mentioned this at previous meetings that you folks were, for the lack of a better phrase, pounding the pavement to get this down from where they had it. So I know it's, as Gene said, it's item 86. So it's been months of looking at this. So yeah. Yep.
Mike, can I add something real quick?
Sure, Alyssa, go ahead. Alyssa and then John, sorry.
Yep. So I just wanted to add, we have been talking about this for like 5 months now. It's been on our log, been tracking. We did have a rough order of magnitude back then of around 100,000. So this is slightly less than that. And furthermore, they actually wiped off their overhead and profit for this change. So they're not profiting, Bacon is not profiting off of this change.
And that was a result of a discussion that, to answer Pat's question, every contractor, when they bid, puts in some escalation for items that are going to be 18 months or 2 years later. So we asked them to account for that somehow in this change. The reason the asphalt is picked upon, for lack of a better term, is that it's a recognized volatile commodity. Steel, brick, concrete, all that stuff, contractors are used to living with those fluctuations. Asphalt has been deemed by the state and the federal government, it is definitely subject to these incredible fluctuations up and down. So it's something asphalt contractors are, I don't say they don't expect it, but they certainly feel they're entitled to a fair shake. So, and the third point is, if it had gone down, yes, we would have been advocating the same thing. As in now, all the work we're bidding now, that is so much more than it should be. When that diesel starts to go down, all of us on this side of the table are going to be asking contractors for some consideration, because there's no way it's costing them a year from now what it is costing them today. So it is a two-way street, and the state does go two ways on this. So it's not something that's unexpected, other than the fact that it's jumped almost 100% in 6 months. So.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Alyssa.
Mike,
Jean, you want to
I
keep
have-
going? Oh,
Mike,
sorry. Go ahead, Lil.
I
Yep, no
have a
worries.
question. Is this including also the asphalt that was done on Wally Kruger Way? This
That was
price?
already paid for in a completely different change.
Okay. So that increase was in that change order as well?
Correct, because that was work we were asking them to do at that time, and we only paid the market price for asphalt at that time. It was actually less than what we paid for the pavement that just went down recently. Another thing to understand is that the first 2 or 3 times they paved, there was no escalation, because the asphalt market was where it belonged. And when we paid the binder and things like that during construction to make the site less muddy, all that paving was done under the original contract, because there was no real escalation. We're only paying for how it's jumped in the last 6 to 8 months. Wally Kruger Way and the final asphalt that went down over June, July, and August.
Okay, thank you.
We have watched this very closely with them and really picked at it with them to make sure that we've done everything we can to be fair, but not get it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You want to keep going?
Sure. The next one is, it covers 2 different spaces, the kitchen and the art room. And it's an addition of $12,884. So you could kind of say roughly it's 6,400 for the kitchen, and the same for the art room. Both of these rooms have a regular exhaust system, and then they have a special exhaust system. In the case of the kitchen, there's the kitchen hood, right, which comes on and sucks out a lot of air. Meanwhile, the regular exhaust system is in the room also. And in the case of the art room, there's a kiln, and that has its separate exhaust system. All 4 of these systems, 2 in each room, are controlled electronically, and the control sequences between the 2 systems in each room did not play well together. So as John and CHA worked it out, there were, the mechanical sub and the electrical sub both had to come in and make changes to the control sequence in both those rooms. Again, I wasn't involved day to day, but the team, Joe and Alyssa and John, And, these are honest costs, and, we both feel like the pricing is what it is. It's not, over the top. So I don't know, John or Joe or Alyssa, if you had anything to add to that, or anyone has any questions. The next one, I think John knows it a little better than I do. I know that a fax line was requested for the nurse's office. So I believe that this is the cost for a new telephone line in there. And then also in the main office, I think when the staff got in there, they were trying to figure out, how the phones and data outlets and computers all were going to get set up, that some work had to be authorized to make things, to move stuff around. Is that about right, John?
Yeah, one of the things that it's embarrassing, but we did not provide the telephone line to the elevator. In our spec, it was written that it was an owner phone line, and it can't be. It needs to be by the contractor because the owner's phone vendor isn't there in time. So this was something in our specification that they were forced to pull this phone line after the fact because they didn't think they had to do it. So a bulk of this is the phones for the elevator and the area of refuge phone. So
Just to be clear, John, it's required by code for the elevator, so it was a code requirement as well.
yeah, you won't get an elevator inspection without this phone.
Right.
And our drawings did not indicate that it was by the contractor. They indicated that it was by the owner's vendor. It can be either way. In this particular job, we get the elevator. We got the elevator a little earlier, so we wanted to push it. So it's just something they had to do.
On the fax line, there was only one fax line, and we needed two for that particular space.
The next one is about $5,100, and it was to improve kind of the water seal at the bottom of the garage door up at the maker space. I think Joe and I keep saying Joe and John, but CHA and RDA had some concerns about the weather tightness of it with wind-driven rain, and worked out some details that would better seal it off.
This was actually both overhead doors, the one at the custodian and the one in the maker lab.
Yeah, it's a much better detail to prevent watershed inside the building.
There's a small one, which is number
So,
100.
Gene,
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Mike.
Just a quick question on number 4. Has that work been done already?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
We asked them to do it immediately because we knew the impact. So
Okay.
as soon as the building was off, this goes up in same thing in the media center, Mike. It's not, the cost is not, but it's the same area that would have had the same water that we were seeing there. So we wanted to make sure it got done and not have an issue. So
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
PCO 100 is a small item. It's $1,300. A stair stringer is the piece of metal that goes up at an angle against the wall, and the tile comes down on top of it, on the outside wall of the stairwells. Apparently we didn't own caulking between the painted metal and the tile, and this got authorized just because it didn't look good and it really needed to look good. Number 101 is $2,100. This is back out on the learning deck, outside the maker space. So that whole deck surface is raised, and then there's pavers, and the roof surface below actually continues out. We didn't think about what happens when the pavers stop and they're 4 or 5 inches up in the air, and the roof surface is down below, continuous under it. So John and worked out a kind of a transition to deal with the edge of that. Again, it was kind of an aesthetic thing, and we felt it was important. So there's a $2,100 charge for the detail they worked out. So these are all becoming small. There's $1,036 to put some, I assume they're hinged, but plastic covers over emergency shutoff switches in the boiler room, kitchen, and the maker lab. And those are done at the request of the fire department. So again, it's small money, but stuff that's important to do to keep the public safety people happy. Some of the previous changes we had paid for last winter or even before were changes to the steel. And when we came to put in the floor surface, John can speak to it a little bit more if anyone has any questions, but the floor needed to be feathered, which means you're just kind of building up layers of underlayment. So the floor gently slopes up and interacts with the adjoining surfaces, without, again, it's kind of an aesthetic issue, but just to make it look so that it's not out of place. And then the last thing was $1,400 to paint out up in the ceiling. We have those, we have all sorts of kind of wood or metal that looks like wood ceilings. And every once in a while, there'll be an HVAC diffuser that might be on a painted wall, or there might be something up in those ceilings. And we had caught most of them as far as painting what was white to blend in with the background. But there were a few that had to catch up with, again, just for aesthetic reasons, and that got authorized. So John or Joe or Alyssa, I don't know if I missed anything.
No, you covered it pretty well.
So Mike, that's change order 19, and again the total is 128,916.16.
Very good. Thanks, Gene. Any other questions for Gene before we go to item number 8? Okay. Item number 8 is the approval of Bacon payment requisition number 22. Alyssa, if you want to just review that real quick.
Alyssa, can I ask you a quick question before you present it? Are they looking to include the change order request in this requisition?
No.
Okay, great. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So this is the pay app for October in the total of $1,118,089. Again, I'd just like to mention, we did cut the rec for the electrical security portion of it until that is resolved. So we hope that meeting tomorrow gives us a plan moving forward and get things to 100%. So this is the amount right here for October.
Then I'll entertain a motion to approve Bacon payment requisition number 22 in the amount of $1,118,089.
I'll second.
That's a motion made by Mr. Rushton. I'll call for a second.
Second, Lil.
Second by Mrs. Holbrook. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Oh, Pat, do you have a question? Okay. Roll call vote. Josh?
Michael,
Yes.
Lil,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Michael Loesch.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Thanks, Josh. On to item number 9, the approval of Bacon change order number 19 If you could, Alyssa, again, just bring that up so people see it. I'll entertain a motion to approve Bacon change order number 19 in the amount of $128,916.16.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Holbrook, second by Mr. Rushton. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote. Josh, you're up.
Michael,
Yes.
Lil,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Mark,
No.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Michael Loesch.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Thanks, Josh. Item number 10, report from communication subcommittee or group, I should say. We don't have an update. Things are moving along with the website. We did have a conversation with Christina from CHA. The website is paid until August of 2023. I guess I do have an update. So once that comes due, we will sunset the website. We will not renew it again. We'll start working with the town to move the information from the website onto a town website. So it lives somewhere there. So that's, I guess, the only real update that I didn't think I had, but apparently I did. All right. Item number 11, our next meeting is scheduled for, Alyssa, sorry, I had it open and I just closed it by accident. Can you help me? December 12th. Okay, thank you. We have no new business. I don't think we do. Any public comment? I do see somebody on the phone. I'm not sure who that person is, but if you are here for public comment, now would be the time. It's a 508 number. I'll ask for public comment one more time. And one more time. All right. Seeing none, moving on. Again, remember next meeting, December 12th. Thank you all for coming tonight. I hope you all have a fantastic, oh, Mr. Powers, I see.
Yes,
you.
Mike, before you end the
Sorry.
meeting, if I
Oh,
may
yes.
just ask a question to you or to the group. Just trying to, we talk about so much at these meetings and you put things in place and then you kind of go back and you're like, what did we actually talk about? So a question was raised by one of the town councilmen at Bridgewater who happened to be on Wally Kruger Way one of the days last week and happened to see a bus take a left out of Wally Kruger Way onto Route 18. I know in talking to safety officials and in much of our discussion here, we have talked about taking a right out of Wally Kruger Way when students were on the bus. The question then was posed, well, what about if students weren't on the bus? What was discussed, or if that was ever discussed? And I vaguely remember a conversation, but I can't 100% say with certainty where, when that took place or what was really decided. So I guess I was posing this to the group. I mean, we've been operating from a school standpoint that if students are on the bus, all the buses have been taking a right. I can't say we communicated to Lucini otherwise, but I don't know if we necessarily communicated that if you didn't have kids on the bus that you absolutely had to take a right. But I wasn't sure if the group had any recollection of that discussion or what the thoughts were of the group. I reached out to Lucini today, just waiting to hear back from them in terms of what their understanding is. But like I said, I just wasn't sure if anybody on the committee remembered that discussion or had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll just speak because, we were involved from the beginning.
Right.
Right, Ryan? We never, the conversations I was in with the administration and the public safety people, it was always take a right, take a right, take a right, because the district could control the buses. But there was never a what if there's no kids on the buses. You know, I have to say, all the meetings I was in, we were assuming the kids were on the buses and leaving. But so that's what I know for what it's worth.
I would have to agree with Jean. All the conversations I remember had to do with when the buses leave, they were to take a right-hand turn.
No matter the
Status of the bus.
status of,
Yeah.
right, whether it's populated or not populated.
Mhm.
So,
But public safety may say, hey, if there's no kids, feel free. But, you know, that was their concern, right? Their concern was they couldn't limit the speed and they couldn't put a stoplight. So,
Mhm.
not to pass the buck, but I guess you could ask them, Ryan, you know,
Okay.
what their feelings are.
I can certainly do that. 100%. Yep. Great suggestion, Gene.
Ryan, are you sure it was a Lucini bus?
You know what, John, I'm not 100% sure. I know we were like I said, one of the councilmen, I emailed Michael and some of the other members, but I don't, that's a great point. I don't know if he actually said Lucini or not.
Well, I know for a fact, because I've seen it at least twice, there's a Montechusett, I say Montechusett, it's a different bus that comes out of your school, and that bus takes a left. I've seen it twice. It's not a Lucini bus.
So it's probably the bus for the YMCA, but that bus is provided by Lucini, even if it does not say Bridgewater Rainham on it.
Yeah, I just know that it doesn't say Lucini on it, but it takes a left out of Wally Kruger Way when it
Okay,
leaves
that's
the
good to
site.
know.
I've seen it twice.
That's good to know.
thanks, John.
That's my 2 cents.
Thank you for that. All right. Does that help, Brian?
It does. And I'll definitely follow up with, wait to get my answer from Lucini, but also follow up with safety officials to confirm with them as well. But that would make sense, I guess, if it is that Y bus taking that left, especially if John's already seen it happen a couple times, that could explain it.
Yep. Very good. Thank you. All right. Very good. Thank you all again, December 12th. Thank you all for your continued work on the project. And I wish you all and your families a happy Thanksgiving.
Michael, you
We'll
did a
see you
great
in
job
December.
tonight. I'll let Michael Dutton know.
Thank you.
We still need the motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah. How about that? Don't leave. Sorry. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Holbrook, second by Mr. Rushton. Roll call vote.
Michael,
Yes.
Lil,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Michael Loesch.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved. The meeting is adjourned.
Thanks,
Good
Josh.
night,
Now
everybody.
everybody can go.
Thanks.
Have a good night, folks.
Thanks,
Good
Mike.
night, everyone. Thank you.